Hello, my name is Paul Barrett, and today I'll be showing you a tutorial for creating a winter scene, and just to quickly show you what it looks like. What I've done is it's mostly stuff to do with color correction, and I also used Particular to add snow, as well as a few other things that we will now go through. This here is the footage that we start off with. Just to go over a few things about what helped with this footage is, one, there's I mean, the sky is blown out. It's also an overcast day, so there's no shadows to worry about. This being done in Ireland, the weather wasn't great, but so that is the kind of thing that helps. Also, it's you'll see when we start adding the fog, having clear lines here, the wall and such, adds a lot to it. Also the camera's not moving, which makes it easier. There's no people or any kind of objects that snow would build up on, as well as another thing. And there's cars there, but we can ignore them, you won't really notice them. And now to start, we have the footage here in a new comp already, and we start with an adjustment layer. And what we do is we do a tint first to make it black and white, and then we go curves and we bring it up. Basically what we're working on is right now is this bottom part here and this grass here. So by doing this, we make it white to make it look like there's been snow on it. The next thing we do is we put in 2 more copies of the footage, and this first one we will mask out the wall, and we will feather that to about 30. And then we will add another one. We can rename these two if you want. And this one would be the trees. And so this one we mask as well. We'll just draw a quick mask around the trees here. There, and for the trees mask, we will feather out at 100. The trees being green as well, we also want to change that. So we will as a new adjustment layer, we'll copy the mask from the trees onto it. So we'll only be affecting that part. We'll once again use the curves and the tint. Tint, change it to black and white, and then we'll also kind of make it brighter to make it look like there is make it look like there's snow in it. We might actually bring down the tint a little bit, just so there's a little bit of green in it. It kind of makes it look a little better. Okay, so now we will start adding a fog effect to the wall and the houses here. So what I use for this is just a white solid. So we go to create a new solid, and we'll just hide it for now. And we just draw where we want the fog to be. And this will change the opacity down to about 60. So as you can see, it's starting to add a fog kind of effect. I will also feather this mask. Maybe the expansion out a bit too, so it looks a little smoother here. We'll do another white solid and hide this one. We'll just rename these to fog 1 and fog 2. And this one would be, because the houses are further away, obviously the fog would be thicker. Okay, so we'll now add fog for the over the wall part. So we just draw along the wall there. And this one will the opacity would have maybe about 70, and we'll also feather the mask a wee bit. Might just adjust this a little bit just to kind of fix it up a bit. Get it looking a little better. Now we'll add a little bit for the trees as well, so we'll get yet another solid, and this one, because it's the same as, we'll just copy the same mask as the trees, but this one we'll put the opacity to about 20% because this is closer to us, and we'll kind of change this mask a bit too. Just kind of, so it's not feathering as much. We got about 20. Expand. Change this in a little bit. Bring this down. So it's looking a little better. This mask still here, still doesn't look great. Okay, so now we'll start color correcting it a little bit. So we'll add in an adjustment layer, and what we'll do is that occurs. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll bring down the red and the green a little bit, and we'll bring up the blue. And it's just a case of messing with this until you get it in a way that looks right and that looks cold, basically. Okay, so the next thing we do is just a little more adjustments to how it looks. What I did was I added basically a vignette. So what we do is we'll have a new solid. This time we'll go to new black solid, and we'll create an oval mask on it, just over the whole layer like that. And instead of adding, we'll subtract, which creates a vignette. And then we will feather it out at 500, and then the expansion be at about 200, so it's just around the borders. And we will also have bring the opacity down to about 40, so it's kind of a subtle effect here. What we'll do is we'll duplicate that, but in the next one what we will do is we'll leave it feathered at 500, but this time the opacity we'll have it at 15, and the expansion we'll bring down. It'll be minus 400. Actually, we'll have the expansion at minus 200. It kind of darkens it a bit and like adds a nice effect to it. Then we'll add a new adjustment layer, and we'll just kind of mess with the colors and the contrast and whatnot a little bit again, just to kind of get the contrast, just to kind of give it a little bit of a boost. And after that we will move on to creating the snow. Okay, so I will go on to the snow next, and so we'll go layer new solid, doesn't matter the color, particular, and we'll also create a new camera because I like how it affects the snow and how it looks. For now we'll solo them so we can just deal with them, and now we start messing with this to make it look like snow. So the particles per second, we'll go at 960. The X and Y position, we'll have it as a box too, and the X and Y position we will have as minus 17 and minus 560 is what I went with. It doesn't have to be exactly that. That's just what I went for when I was messing with it. We'll do the air next just so you can actually see it. So what I had is the wind was 150 and then 80 and then 0. And for the gravity we had minus 30. That's what I went with. Oh no, sorry. Gravity I went with 30. You have it looks like that at the moment. It looks gammy, but we can fix that. While we're here, we'll do the turbulence thing as well too, and that affected the position by 200. Another thing I did is just to make it look more like a blizzard and make it look kind of like it's messy and more organic. I added expressions. We just had a quick wiggle on these ones, so I went with 1 and 50, and we'll copy that and just add it to the Y and Z as well. You can kind of see it a little bit here. It's wiggling about. And we'll go back to the emitter now that we can actually see the velocity, I have a 0, and then for the particle itself, the life changed to 20, and that ain't right. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to change the emitter size. That's what it is. 2,500, 500, and 10,000. So there, yeah, it's starting to look a bit more like snow. And now the particle, we already have the life at 20, and now we will have the size at 3, and the opacity will change to 70 to make it more transparent. And then we will also turn on the motion blur, and here we have our snow, and we'll move this down just so it starts off with it already. And there's a fairly realistic looking snow, but we're not finished there. We'll call this one Snow 1. We'll do more. So we duplicate that. This one is Snow 2, and then we will mess with this one more to kind of mix it up and make it different. So this one here, going to emitter particles per second, we will have only 300. This is something, if you're wondering how I came to all this, it was pretty much just trial and error. When I was doing it, I just kept messing around with settings until I got it in a way that I liked it. And you know, you can do the same thing. So the emitter size 1066 3612. I just wrote down the settings that I used for last one. I don't know why it's so specific with these numbers. I don't think it has to 25. I mean, I wrote 2593. I could easily just write 2590, but also we'll add a velocity for this one. This one is 2140. I went with we'll kind of unsolo the first snow just so you can see this one here. It's a lot more hectic, I guess. The opacity we will bring up to 100, and now for the physics we'll change the gravity to 40, and then the wind will go with 117.66 and minus 64. That's what I went with. And I will turn off the turbulence field. So now we have this kind of effect going on, and it doesn't look like much on its own, but when it's together it kind of adds a bit more of a snow being all over the place. And we'll duplicate that first one again. This one will be Snow 3, and we will just solo that one. So for this one, we'll particles per second 300. Our velocity we're going to turn way up. It'll be 8,470. But for the particle size we will have as 300. So at the moment we have this kind of effect, but what we'll do is we'll turn the opacity right down to about 25. We'll also change the wind as well. Wind X will be 10,000. I will be 900 and 30, and we'll actually change the wiggle for this one, so it'll have wiggle 100, just to kind of mess it up a bit. Oops, I spelled that wrong. I'll actually, with the camera, just kind of put up the aperture a bit, just to kind of add a bit more depth to the snow. Maybe have it at about 100, and maybe 150. See how that looks. So we'll turn the soloing off, and again it is just a case of getting it to a point that you're happy with. We'll put the focus distance down a bit. It's just a case of getting it to a point where you're happy with it and where it looks good. You're free to kind of keep messing around with it and how it looks. Just to compare this to the original file I did, and there. So I think the color, it did end up being a little different. There's a little bit more green in it than the one I did there for the tutorial. Again, it's just a case of messing with the curves. I find it best to just kind of mess with things yourself and get it to a way that you're happy with. Actually, one thing I didn't do in the tutorial, but it's very simple to do for these here, I just found pictures online of houses with snow on the roofs, and what I did was I just like masked out most of the roof parts, so all you're left with is the snow, and I layered it on top here. It's kind of a small thing, but it does add to it, I guess. And I also found, I mean, this looks kind of crappy when you look at it like this, but I just found like a photo of snow on a wall and just kind of layered it on top here. I also added for this here, the effect of the light on, I just created an orange solid mask the windows, and I just kind of added I duplicated it, and what I did was I put up the blur and put down the opacity to create a glowing effect, just to kind of make it look like there's a light on. And it looks kind of crappy here, but it's behind fog, so once it's kind of behind everything and color corrected like that, it adds a little, you barely see it, but it adds a little bit. And it's always best to kind of try and find those little details to put in. I mean, one thing I didn't do is I didn't do anything to these cars. I guess you can just pretend that they just got there. Nothing was done to the sign. Actually, that's one. In the original file I didn't do anything to the sign, but that's one thing people pointed out that bothered them, is that it's after all the effects are done, there's kind of a blooming type effect. I mean, that could easily just be done, fixed with we'll add a new adjustment layer, and we'll just, because the camera's not moving in this one, we can do it very quickly. We'll just kind of mask out the sign. And we'll add some curves, and we'll just mess with it until kind of dull it a bit. Just so it doesn't look like it's kind of glowing. I'll just show you as well, you know, I said at the start of this that this specific one was set up so it was you know, it was easier because the camera is locked down, there's no like people in it and whatnot. And this one, I mean, this was something that was shot years ago, so I didn't have the benefit of actually like using a green screen, so I just kind of fairly crudely rotoed around the edges and just messed with I kind of again added a white solid and just messed with the curves, messed with the color correction to get that kind of look, and it was just a case of getting in a way that I thought looked okay. I also used the Foundry's camera tracker to track it because the camera moves in this one, and I just kind of tried to track the wall and stuff just to keep it I think I manually tracked the actual edges for the wall here, but this is what this ended up looking like. It's not perfect, but again, you know, it's doable. So this has been my first tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. It was kind of a quick and dirty kind of thing. If you have more questions, just kind of post in the comments, and I'll help you out if I can. So thank you.